Welcome to the show. It's time to dive in. Talking sports with Evan. Let the fun begin. From the Brewers to the Packers, we cover it all. Wisconsin pride, we stand tall. The baggers on the field making history. With every touchdown, it's a victory. From Camp Randall to the court, we chill out. Wisconsin sports, we make our state proud. Feel the energy, the passion in the air. Join the conversation, we got stories to share. From the Bucks' big wins to the Brewers' great plays, we'll keep you entertained through all the game days. Sports with Evan, it's where we belong. Wisconsin's heart, it beats strong.
Good evening and welcome to a Thursday NFL Combine edition of Talking Sports with Evan. And thank you so much for tuning in here tonight. A little bit earlier, I know I said 8:30, but I decided to move it up a little bit sooner, about 15 minutes early. Figured, why not? Last week took the week off. This week I am back, re-energized, recharged, and I have a few things to bring you tonight for the show. You can find the show right here on social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, and X at Evan with Sports on X, and Facebook and YouTube is Talking Sports with Evan. You can also find the podcast on Apple and Spotify, which the new episode will be dropping tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. for the audio version. Video version, as I mentioned, you can find on Facebook, YouTube, or X. Want to thank the sorry about that. Want to thank the supporters of the show and the people who watch each and every week. And if you would like to, please subscribe and like and reshare and retweet or repost the show if you would as well. Well, tonight's show, going to talk some Packers. I know I talk Packers every week, but hey, there's some things that have happened since my last show that warrant a conversation. From Packers needing a new special teams coach, which, yes, I know I'm a week late on, to report cards coming out. The thing is, these report cards were not supposed to be public. There was conversation a few weeks ago, that these report cards, the NFL Players Union decided were going to be kept private. Well, guess what? They weren't kept private and they were leaked, and now that seems to be the big talking point for the Packers right now, with some of the grades that they got and Matt LaFleur got, and the people that adamantly hate Matt LaFleur and want him fired and want him gone are using it as justification on why he should have been gone. His players don't even like him. They need to learn how to read, but that's besides the point. I did not want Matt LaFleur back. I will say that with full transparency. I thought it was time to move on with the coach and the coaching staff. I said this numerous times during the past few shows that I felt it was time to move on. But hey, he's sticking around. Nothing we can do about it. Me complaining nonstop on X and whatnot isn't going to change a thing. The Packers made their decision. I'm going to cheer on the Packers. And no, I'm not saying you can't criticize the Packers, but you don't need to continue to make it your personal vendetta to criticize and trash and put down the head coach every opportunity you can possibly get. Is he perfect? No. Did I want to see a change? Yes. But sorry, not happening. I think the talk should have been more on the GM than the head coach personally. But again, both are coming back for another year. Also going to talk some Milwaukee Bucks. Are the Bucks fun to watch again? I don't know about you, but they're 8-2 over their last 10, and I'm having fun watching the Bucks play again. I know, playoff wise, it's probably a long shot and everything, but like I said, the Milwaukee Bucks have been fun to play again, and I'm going to kind of go into the reason why a little bit, why I feel that way. Spring training is underway, and the Brewers are going to have some tough decisions to make with some guys playing really well right now, and Tyler Black, for example. And WWE Elimination Chamber is coming up in 2 days. And I'm going to give my thoughts on Elimination Chamber and the card. And one thing that I am very unhappy, nervous isn't the right word, but something that I'm very unhappy about on what it's looking like the WWE is going to do. So that is pretty much the show in a nutshell. If you are watching live and you'd like to comment, please do so. Let me know your thoughts on the Packers report card. Let me know your thoughts on the Bucks thus far. Let me know your thoughts on WWE and the Brewers. Feel free to comment. And if you are not watching live, feel free to comment too. And I can address them in my next show that I do next week to bring you Talking Sports with Evan. So first thing first, last week, and I didn't do a show, should have, but, my mental health, more important, just wasn't feeling it. But that's besides the point. Apologize for that noise, but my second monitor is about to fall. But the Packers special teams coordinator, Rich Bisaccia, decided after he was going to return this year, decided after 38 days he was not going to return as the Packers special teams coordinator, which you can tell at the NFL Combine. It definitely took Brian Gutekunst by surprise. You could tell reading Matt LaFleur's statement, it took him by surprise. They were expecting him to return, and he just abruptly said, hey, I'm done. I want to pursue other opportunities. So now the Packers need a new special teams coordinator, which they probably should have anyways at the end of the year, should have looked for a different special teams coordinator. But at the end of the day, and this is where I want to kind of talk special teams. The Packers special teams has not been good really at all since their last Super Bowl win. They had a pretty solid special teams unit in 2010. I don't know the exact ranking, but their special teams were solid. They've had inconsistent special teams pretty much since then. Changing the coach isn't going to fix anything. We saw that it didn't fix anything when they hired Rich, when they gave him the job, when they let Drayton go, and they brought Biscaccia in. When they brought him in, we saw that it didn't change anything. It didn't change anything with Sean Slocum. It didn't change anything under Ron Zook. It didn't change anything under Drayton. It didn't change at all. And the reason why, it's not a special teams coach problem, it's an organizational issue. The Packers just don't value the position that they probably should. While you look to fill the roster with guys in the draft and free agency that are more special team core guy, which the Packers have gotten more special team core guys recently, but Zane Anderson, for example. But you don't have your Jeff Janices anymore. You have your Bull Melton, but you don't have your Jeff Janices anymore, who is a great gunner, and the Packers coverage unit was pretty good when Jeff Janis was one side as a gunner. They just don't value special teams. They don't. And most of the NFL doesn't value special teams. Like the NFL, special teams in general is just not very good in the NFL. The Packers look to draft and develop. They would rather draft a tackle who's going to take a couple years of seasoning to develop rather than taking maybe an extra linebacker that's going to be on your kickoff coverage and your kickoff return. But they're not the only team that does that. It's kind of an NFL issue right now. I know as Packer fans, that's what we typically watch is mostly Packers, but the Rams fired their special teams coordinator this year. Special teams, other than Seattle, was just not very good. Now I hope the Packers hire the assistant special teams coach from the Seattle Seahawks And I hope that they invest in some personnel that can be key special teams contributors. But the Packers do play starters, too, on special teams. Bullard was on a special teams unit, Xavier McKinney, Edgerrin Cooper, Evan Williams. They were all on the Packers special team unit. And guess what? The special teams unit still underachieved big time, just like it has for the last several years. But I'll be curious to see how they go from here. Now, Packer report card. Now, again, these were supposed to be confidential. Of course, it got leaked. Started with Aaron. I saw it first with Aaron Nagler retweeting or taking a screenshot. Of the report that was a little worrying. The Green Bay Packer, quote, fell 14 spots to 21st overall in this year's report card, the steepest year-over-year decline of any team. The drop is driven largely by the decline in ratings for the training room and training staff, which now rank in the bottom third of the league. Players report a lack of space and outdated recovery equipment, along with a lack of communication and trust in the training room. These issues are a top priority players identify that need to be addressed. I'm going to stop there and address that area first. Very concerning to me. The Packers have been one of the most injured teams over the past couple years, especially this last year. And I know ACLs and Achilles, there's not a whole lot you can do to prevent those. But you see a lot of issues with injuries for the Packers. In the past, you've seen a lot of soft tissue injury with the Packers. You saw Martellus Bennett, after the Packers released him, talk about how and I take what Bennett said with a grain of salt, because I've never seen anybody say a bad word about Doc McKenzie. But you hear what he said back in the 2014, 2013, 2017, whenever that was. I know it was one of the year Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone. You think about what was said there. And now you read this. To me, that's very concerning. If your players aren't trusting the training staff to get you healthy, to get back to playing, what are we doing? That's definitely something that needs to be addressed and needs to be fixed. The Packers need to address that and get the training room back to where it needs to be. To continue, players report that the team does not provide game day childcare, as most teams do. I get why you want game day childcare, because maybe the kids don't want to be sitting in the stands in the family section watching the game. Maybe they'd rather be playing around, and having a childcare center could be beneficial. But whatever. Contributing to their bottom third ranking for treatment of families. The team's nutrition program similarly ranks near the bottom, with players wanting improved nutrition plans and more nutritious food options to better support these plans. Head coach Matt LaFleur dropped a full letter grade this season and ranked second to last in the league in respect for players. Now, this is where a lot of people were they saw what they wanted to see, and that's what they're hammering the drum on. They read it as ranked second to last in the league in respect to players. So basically, or from players. Basically, they're trying to say that this is showing that the guys in the locker room have no respect for Matt LaFleur. It's not what it said. From and for are two different things. They mean two completely opposite things. For players. So that means that the Packers it's still bad either way. But it's basically saying that the Packers players feel that the coaches that Matt LaFleur doesn't respect them. And Brian Bulaga was on a show here in Milwaukee talking about a little bit, and he had some interesting questions about it too. And he wants to know more information. And one of the things, I don't know, when was this survey done? Was it? I saw reports that it was before the 5-game losing streak. So the survey wasn't done a week ago. It was done during the 2025 season. It was just, data was compiled and it was just got leaked today. But I would kind of like to know, like, can you go in more detail on why do you feel Matt LaFleur doesn't have respect? And let's just kind of do a quick rundown overall of the thing. So back in after the 2024 season, so the 2025 edition of it, the Packers were 7th in the NFL. Now they sit at 21st. Treatment of families, they were a B last year. Now they're a C plus. Home field advantage, they were a C plus. Lambeau Field is revealed, but playing surface is unpredictable and often slippery was the reason why. Food dining area, A minus, fell to a B plus. Players wanted more nutrition options at the facility. Packers ranked 6th in this category last season. Nutrition dietitian, they went from an A minus to a B. They were 7th in the category last season. Now they're in the bottom. Locker room, they went from a B to an A, so that's an improvement. The locker room got better. They upgraded the locker room at Lambeau before the 2025 season, and players definitely liked it. Training room went from an A minus to a C. So that's confusing to me. So 2025, the training room gets an A minus. A year later, it drops to a C, and the reasoning is outdated equipment and lack of space were to blame. The Packers are upgrading the training facilities at Lambeau this offseason, but what changed from 2025 when the players seemed to love the training room to now it's a C? So last year, or the 2025 edition of the survey, the equipment was fine, but now it's outdated. So what changed in a year to go from fine to outdated? I'm very curious about that. Training staff went from a B to a C, and this is what really bothers me. A lack of trust drove this poor ranking. Not great coming off a season in which many players suffered big injuries. Players saw the training space and training staff as a top priority needing to be addressed. And this is from Packers Wire that I'm getting this information from. I apologize for not crediting my source, not my source, for crediting my information where I'm getting it from sooner. So I apologize to Packers Wire. A lot of great information on Packers Wire. Weight room went from an A to an A minus. Strength coaches, B, stay the same. And this is a strength conditioning team that was brand new in 2024. And now they stay the same, but the weight room dropped. Kind of curious on why there. There were no grade for the position coaches in 2025, but the position coaches in 2026 are a B plus, middle of the pack. Offensive coordinator, no grade last year, but this year a C. Adam Stenavich is one of 8 offensive coordinators to get a C grade or worse. The other 7 were fired. So, sounds like Adam Stenavich isn't well liked in the building, but yet we're keeping him around. Interesting. Jeff Halfley got an A minus. Gannon got a B plus in the head coach grades for what it's worth. Special teams coordinator, and this is where Rich was well liked. He got a B plus. I know there's a lot of respect for him in the building, and we kept hearing about that when we were wondering why the Packers weren't moving on from him. Team travel went from an A minus to a B minus. A lot of the complaints here league wide, only 12 teams graded out higher than a B minus, but the Packers did have a big fall in the grade. Again, what changed team travel wise between last year and this year? What changed? Why did it go from an A minus to a B minus? Different players? I'm kind of curious. And the one that is alarming, maybe, Matt LaFleur went from an A minus to a B minus. Maybe the most, and this is what Packer Wire said, maybe the most alarming drop, only 6 head coaches graded out worse than a B, and LaFleur is 1. 4 of the 5 others were fired. LaFleur got an extension. Interesting, many veteran players stood up for LaFleur publicly after the disappointing end to the season. So that's another one that's curious about. Your top guys, Micah Parsons, Jordan Love, Tucker Kraft, to name a few, had nothing but positive things to say about Matt LaFleur. They were defending him after the season. But now you look at this and the grade dropped quite a bit. So where is the disconnect? Why is there a big drop? Why do the players feel that Matt LaFleur does not respect them? That's stuff that the Packers do have to address. That's something that Matt LaFleur cannot just look at this, read it over, and just throw it in the wastebasket like it's nothing. He's got to figure out what happened. You go from an A- to a B-. He's got to figure out what happened. Why the drop? What does he need to do differently to better reach the players, to better serve the players? And again, if I'm the head coach of the Green Bay Packers, I'm trying to figure out, why do they feel that I don't respect them? Because if he can't get that lack of respect thing figured out, if it is a problem, that could have big impacts on the 2026 season. And maybe I'm overreacting to this. I don't think I am. I am taking it with a whole grain of salt. But that is one of the things that if I'm at LaFleur, I got to figure out. How do I fix that relationship? There's obviously a problem in the relationship. The players don't feel I trust them. So what can I do differently? And why did we have that drop? Goody graded at a B+, put him in the bottom half of general manager, but he also got an extension. Ownership got an A-. So apparently the fans and the players enjoy the Packers fans owning the team and Ed Policy as team president. So I don't know when they say team ownership, if they're talking like the Packer fans that own the team, which I don't think they are, or are they talking about Mark Murphy and Ed Policy, which I think Policy is who they're talking about when they say owners, because that's the quote Packers owner's voice. But what are your thoughts on the report card? Concerning at all? Again, it's a little concerning. There's elements of it to me that are in fact concerning. The alleged lack of trust that the players seem to feel Matt LaFleur has for them is very concerning, and the lack of trust in the training staff is very concerning, because that trust is very important. So, lack of respect for from LaFleur to the players, and the lack of trust with the training staff, those are very concerning to me, and those are things that the Packers need to get addressed now if they hope to be a true Super Bowl contender, because the lack of respect part could end up causing a problem if the Packers struggle out of the gate. But for the most part, though, take it for what it's worth. NFL Combine going on right now. My advice to everybody watching the Combine or reading about the results or watching videos, don't overreact to anything you see at the NFL Combine. The NFL Combine is basically the underwear Olympics. Guys train since the end of the college season till now to perform well at the Combine. At the end of the day, film doesn't lie. Now, the Combine, for the guys that actually make the decisions, all it's going to do is reinforce what they already know, or make them maybe take a second look at somebody if they test better or worse than what they anticipated. Don't overreact to 40 times. Don't overreact to bench press. Don't overreact to really anything. But the things that I look at, from my perspective, I'm an amateur draft guy, is 40-yard dash. Okay, cool. But let's look at the 10-yard split. Let's look at the 20-yard split. 10-yard splits is a better indicator for an offensive and defensive lineman, because an O lineman and a D lineman are never going to sprint 40 yards down the field in a straight line. But they do have to get off the ball quickly. And the 10-yard split could be an indicator on how quickly they can get off the ball. The 3-cone drill, it shows good change of direction ability. That could be helpful for defensive linemen, pass rushers, corners, safeties, O-linemen, somewhat, quarterbacks, running backs. That could be a good indicator on how good they can change direction. The broad jump, I feel, is a good indicator of explosiveness. It shows how explosive of an athlete that person can be. Vertical jump, I don't care about, because rarely is a wide receiver or a defensive back, and especially never is an edge rusher going to be jumping straight up in the air in a stopped position. That's never going to happen. So I don't really care about that. But the ones that I like with the 40-yard dashes, the 10 and 20-yard splits, the 3-cone drill, the broad jump, those are what I prefer to kind of get an idea of what that person can be. And obviously the on-field work is interesting to watch too. But I know Fernando Mendoza is not going to throw, and I've heard people complain about that. But at the end of the day, why is he going to throw? Like, he's going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft. What does he have to gain by throwing at the combine? To me, it's better for him to wait to his pro day where he's playing with receivers that he knows, controlled environment, and he doesn't, the only thing Mendoza can do is hurt his draft stock from here. So I don't have any issue with Mendoza not throwing at the combine. But moving on to a different sport here, the NBA and the Milwaukee Bucks. So again, this is Talking Sports with Evan. Reset here. You can find the show on X at Evan with Sports, or on Facebook and YouTube, Talking Sports with Evan, and on Spotify and Apple. You can find every past show that I've ever done dating back several years. Are the Milwaukee Bucks fun again? Because I remember up until probably the end of January-ish, the Bucks weren't a lot of fun to watch. Especially the non-Giannis minutes when Giannis is on the floor. When Giannis is playing, I mean. When Giannis is on the floor, the Bucks are winning. We're winning easily. He leaves the floor, they fall apart. But they're now 8-2 over their last 10. They're playing pretty good basketball, and they're fun to watch. And they're led by Kevin Porter Jr., Ryan Rollins, Cam Thomas, and Miles Turner's been playing much better recently. And like I said, they're just a much more fun team to watch now. And what's changed? Like when Giannis first got hurt earlier in the year, they struggled. When Giannis first got hurt before the All-Star break, they struggled. But what's changed? What's changed just before the All-Star break and now coming out of the All-Star break? What's changed with the Milwaukee Bucks? And I can tell you, in my opinion, what's changed. I could be wrong. But they seem to be playing better as a team. Ryan Rollins isn't looking to hog the ball. Kevin Porter Jr. is passing the ball around. Bobby Portis is playing his role pretty strong. I think at the trade deadline, getting a couple guys out of there and getting Dieng, I think, was huge. I like what the Bucks have right now. They went from an old, slow team to they have a pretty young, exciting team to watch right now, and it's curious to see if that can continue once Giannis returns. But they're playing together. They're playing the system. They have great ball movement most nights, and the defense has gotten them better. Now, the game they lost recently against Toronto, 122-94, it's like they completely forgot what they've been doing for the last few weeks to get to, or the past few games, to get to that point. He beat the Pelicans 139-118, which I know the Pelicans aren't anything special, but you beat Oklahoma City Thunder quite handily too. So what changed between those wins and the Raptors is you stopped moving the ball. Kevin Porter Jr. had 10 assists in that game against Toronto. The Bucks had a total of 18 assists as a team. Now, I'm not saying the Bucks are going to go to the playoffs and they're going to be a team to reckon with in the playoffs, but as of right now, they sit at 26-31. They're tied in the loss column with the Hornets. The Hornets sit at 28-31. So they're 2 up on the Bucks in the win column, and they're tied up in the loss. They are a game and a half behind game and a half behind the Hawks for the 9. And they got the work cut out for them to get to catch the Miami Heat for the 7. And then the Magic, they have their work cut out for them. But if they continue to play well, they can definitely get into the playoff tournament. And the 8-9 is where you want to be in the playoff tournament, because 8 plays 9, 10 plays 11. Sorry, I screwed that up. 7 or 8 is where you want to be in the play-in tournament. 7 plays 8. Then 9 plays 10. So if you lose in the 7-8 game, you get another game. If you lose in the 9-10 game, you're done. So 7-8 is where the Bucks want to probably try to get to. But I'm enjoying watching them play right now. And when Giannis comes back, if they continue to play like they are with the ball movement, the unselfishness, passing the ball around, this is a team that if you're all of a sudden the Pistons or the Celtics in the first round, do you really want to see? And I'm not saying the Bucks are going to win that series, but I'm saying is the Bucks are going to put up a bigger fight than they probably want to have against a 8-9 or 7-8-9 or 10 seed in the NBA playoffs. Finally, I'm going to kick the Brewers till next week, because I do want to talk WWE Elimination Chamber and give my thoughts. First off, it looks like it's going to be a good show out of Chicago. The card looks solid. However, the outcomes are probably going to piss a lot of people off, including myself. Start with the World Heavyweight Championship match, CM Punk versus Finn Balor. I'm excited for this match. Now, we all know CM Punk is going to win, but I'm excited for this match. This is going to be a fun match. The match they had in Ireland was great to watch, and now they're running it back. And I'd be curious to see if Dominic gets involved or JD McDonough gets involved, and see how that carries over into the next, not 2 nights later on Raw, when Dominic has a Intercontinental title match against Penta. I'm sure that's going to carry over. Women's Intercontinental title match, Becky Lynch versus AJ Lee. What they're probably going to do is AJ Lee win the title in Chicago, and then set up Becky versus AJ Lee again at WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. That's probably what they're going to do. And now the 2 Elimination Chamber matches. Start with the women's. In the women's match, you have Rhea Ripley, Tiffany Stratton, Alexa Bliss, Asuka, Kiana James, and Raquel Rodriguez. I think it's pretty safe to say that either Tiffany Stratton or Rhea Ripley is going to win. I think that's pretty safe to say. I don't see them having Alexa Bliss win. I don't see them having Asuka win. Kiana James is definitely not winning, and Raquel Rodriguez is definitely not winning. So I think it's going to be either Rhea Ripley or Tiffany Stratton. I just haven't decided which one I think is going to end up winning. And the men's match, the men's Elimination Chamber match. You have Randy Orton, LA Knight, Cody Rhodes, Javon Evans, and Trick Williams, and Jey Uso. We all know Cody's going to win. Like that's a given. It is a complete given that Cody Rhodes is going to win, and we're going to get Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes once again at WrestleMania. And what irritates me about that, because I do like Cody Rhodes, but what irritates me about that is you put the title on Drew McIntyre in a 3 stages of hell match. When you have that 3 stages of hell match and you have a Hell in a Cell, those are supposed to be feud enders, not continue the feud down the, continue with the same feud. So that should have allowed Drew McIntyre to shift to a Randy Orton or an LA Knight. I know LA Knight was on Raw at the time, but still, you get my point. It should have put him in another program or with Jacob Fatu. And I know they had Jacob Fatu interfere in the cage match to help Drew McIntyre win and whatnot, but have Cody Rhodes fight Jacob Fatu at Elimination Chamber in a one-on-one match or something. But I think it's just too obvious that you're going to have Cody Rhodes win, and then you're likely going to turn it into a triple threat or a fatal four-way match due to whatever reason. But I'm worried about that, basically. That's one of my worries, and we'll see what happens. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for tuning in. The audio version will go live first thing tomorrow morning about 8 a.m. on Spotify and Apple. Make sure to like and subscribe on Facebook, YouTube, and X. This has been Talking Sports with Evan. I will see you all next week. Have a great and wonderful weekend.